When you're trying to record your video and your cat jumps up on the table. Do you want to review ArtPOP markers with me today, Panini? Hey everyone, I'm Starlene Hodge. Welcome to my channel. Today is a different video because ArtPOP sent me these alcohol markers. It's not a sponsored video, but I did get these for free and I figured we would test them out. They also sent me 2 mixed media pads, so I'm excited to try this paper. I normally work with Copics, as you can see here, and honestly, I've never tried another alcohol brand, so this will be the first alcohol marker brand that I'll try to compare to Copics, but I won't talk about them. I'll just talk about these. The price difference is definitely significant. These are currently going for 25 bucks in their shop, like $24.99. That's their sale price, so I don't know if they'll ever go to their full price, but right now these are about 25 bucks, and same with these 2 pads. So let's go test these out.
Time to unbox these. The box itself is kind of a harder plastic, but there's still a lot of bend and give to it. It was really crinkly when I opened this up, and my husband was playing Baldur's Gate in the other side of the room, so I am doing a voiceover so you don't have to hear him and his buddy trying to defeat some monsters. I really like the 2 trays that these come in. It's kind of nice to just have everything able to lay out. And checking out this paper, honestly, paper's fine. It's like, you know, decent mixed media paper. It's not as thick as like the Bristol board that I use when I'm making pieces to sell my artwork, but for like sketches and drawings and just general like let's experiment paper, it's pretty good. The markers themselves have like this triangular shape, which feels pretty nice for drawing. Good grip in that sense. They're not like, it doesn't seem like they would be hard to hold for a long period of time. One side has this very thin like pen nib, and the other one is more of like a flat marker. I wish the pen nib side was a little bit thicker because I use pens to ink, and the pen nib side on this is kind of in a bigger than my pens, but not a big enough marker. And the flat end side I would use just for like coloring bigger spaces. So I wish there was like an in-between. I have my pens for inking, and I want the thinner side of the marker to be a little thicker. Since I'm not used to these markers yet, I'm gonna make a color swatch on the paper that they provided for me, just so I could see what the colors actually look like compared to what the pen itself is saying the color should be. I'm also doing 2 strokes. The first stroke is just what it looks like with 1 pass, and then the second stroke is multiple passes so I could see how much the color builds up as well. I will say first impressions while making these swatches is that these colors are way brighter and more opaque than I expected them to be. They're just like really, really, really bright, which I love. I think that's fantastic. It's nice to see such a bright pop of color. I'm assuming they made these markers specifically for illustrators in mind, so that you want these like really, really rich color palettes. So that part, A+, that's really cool. These markers are also really juicy. I don't know if that's also part of the paper with it being used, but they like just feel like very, I don't know how to explain it. Juicy is the word. They are a juicy marker set. I do wonder how much ink is in each of these markers, since it doesn't look like you could refill them at the moment. So I'm not sure how long these would last, but for what you get, I think it's pretty nice. After making the swatches, these 4 colors in particular, I would say don't really match the color that they're saying they are and what they look like on the page. To me, they look very, very different, especially the caramel and the peach on the top. The caramel is much darker, actually looks like the word caramel, not the marker. And the peach is kind of more orange. Also, these markers have the same issue with most alcohol markers, where they will definitely bleed through the back of the page. So if you're working on anything, you should put a sheet of paper or something to protect it. I did that while I was working on this. That's my like go-to marker page to protect stuff. and that way you don't get a lot of crazy bleed through on your other clean pages, and that's kind of how you do that. You really can't like work on two sides of a page for a sketchbook, but honestly that's kind of how it goes with these. Now it's time to try blending, which is really important for alcohol markers. It's kind of their best feature. I ended up just picking the top 3 colors, yellow, caramel, and orange, since they should be close in match, and I should be able to use the lightest color to blend in the rest of the colors. I will say I'm a little disappointed with how the blending is. As you can see, like the caramel and the yellow still have kind of a harsh line in between each other, and same with the orange and the caramel. There's no like really smooth ombre effect happening. I also tried it with 2 opposite colors, green and pink, to see what the middle of that also looks like. Again, kind of muddy. There's no like smooth blending aspect. And just to try it out, because I wasn't sure if it was the paper, I pulled out a piece of my usual Bristol paper and tried it again, which on the Bristol paper the colors are slightly lighter, but the blending is the same. Like they don't really blend as well as I would like. So to fully test out these markers, I'm going to draw a quick sketch on the paper they provided and on my usual Bristol board paper, because I really want to see how they feel on what I normally draw on. My go-to when I don't know what to draw and I'm just testing stuff is mermaids. I love drawing mermaids. So if ultimately these markers can give me the dreamy kind of watercolory marker vibes that I love with mermaid drawings in particular, that would be great. I'm also excited to see how these pens react with my inking pens. I want to know if they will smear, or if they're going to like blend really well, or are they going to lift them up. Also, I will say it feels really different inking on the mixed media paper. It definitely has more tooth to it and like texture as you draw on it. I kind of like how that feels. It's definitely different to the smoothness of my Bristol paper that I always use. And it was actually kind of jarring to go from the toothy paper to the smooth paper on the side. I had to like remember, I was like, oh, this, I thought like my Bristol Smooth was toothier than it was, and it definitely isn't. It's definitely a different vibe depending on what kind of feeling you like as you're drawing. But I liked it. I like the tooth. All right, coloring time. I tried using the pen nib to color in these areas, but it just was not spreading fast enough, so I had to switch over to using the thicker marker side of the pen to fill in like larger areas. But normally I would prefer using a smaller size. Like this is where I was like, oh, I really wish I was in between this thin pen side marker and the thicker, bigger side of the marker, because I need like that middle ground where it's like, okay, I could use it to use details, but also I want to go faster and I don't want to see all like the marker streaks, because it's not blending as smoothly as I would like. I will say, like, because of the blending technique, I tried to switch over to more of like a cell style shading instead of like a very smooth blended type of shading, to kind of like compensate for it not blending as much as I'd like. So if you do cell style coloring, these markers probably will work really well for you. My biggest complaint is some of the markers, while I was doing this, I realized on the pen nib side, it wasn't juicy anymore. It actually struggled to release the color. So that orange color there, you could see I was testing it on the side. I was trying to get the color to come out, and ended up having to like give up on that. So that part, not great. I wish you could refill these. If you could refill these, then I don't think that would be much of an issue. The size of the pen nib, when you get to an even smaller image, kind of becomes more transparent as well, where it's just like having a middle ground between the skinniness of the pen nib and the thickness of the marker would be great. But I also like to color quickly, so if you are a patient colorer, you might find the thinner pen like way more to your liking. I just like to cover the area of my drawings as quickly as possible, because then like the blending usually works a little bit better. And I will say, like, the opaqueness and richness of these colors are still a joy to work with. I was so happy with how bright this piece came out. It also really worked well with my Posca markers. I usually go over most of my drawings with a white Posca marker, and like, especially with mermaids and drawing bubbles and stuff like that. As you can see, sometimes Posca markers do leak a little bit, but you could kind of work around that. I use them to add highlights and just extra details and texture. So I decided to grab some rubbing alcohol to add more of a watercolory look to these. If you add rubbing alcohol to alcohol marker drawings, it will kind of lighten them and make them spread out. I accidentally got the alcohol on the main character's face. That was not my intention. I really wanted it to just be on the background or like over her tail. But honestly, it was a happy accident, because when the alcohol fell on her face and I went back with the regular marker to go over it, it started to blend really, really well. So maybe these markers need more alcohol in them to add to their blending capabilities. But ultimately, I actually ended up liking these a lot more. Like, adding that little accident really like made these pop to me. So here's a beauty shot of the smaller mermaid drawing. I actually put this up on my shop shortly after I finished this, and it sold relatively quickly, so the markers don't hinder sales, at least on that front. Really happy with that. And then I was left with the rest of this art piece, and I actually did not like that I had this big square. And I'm like, hey, it's a sketchbook, let's get messy with it, and let me try to finish out this scene. So I did that, and I just kind of goofed and like let myself doodle with no lines, just kind of wanted to see what I can do with the rest of these markers to fill up this scene. I actually ended up really liking the smaller pen tip here, because I didn't use my regular pens to ink. I used the thinner side of these markers to kind of have that effect, and that I really liked. So if you use these markers to kind of do your line work, it might also be a benefit to have the skinnier line. And then of course I covered everything in alcohol again so that everything matched and blended in a little bit better. Here's how the final page came out. Remember, it's a sketchbook, so I kind of just let loose. But the mixed media held up for sure.
And that's my review for the ArtPOP alcohol marker set. I would love to try out more of these markers. If ArtPOP would like to send some more my way, would appreciate it. I can only do so much with this limited color range, so if you want to send me the bigger pack and I'll try those out, that'll be really fun. But yeah, these are pretty good. But yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to see more art videos like this. If you're an art supply company and you want to send me some stuff to review, I'll also appreciate that. Yeah. See you guys next time. There was a cat here the whole time. Right, Nini? Did you care about the markers? What do you think? Do you like these? How do you feel? How do you feel about the ArtPOPs? That's the cat review.